Let's take a closer look at how Xfade works. First off, you want to assign a CC to control the plugin. In most cases, I recommend that you don't use the mod wheel because it's also affecting dynamics. To really make full use of Xfade, I would recommend using a separate CC fader. Next, you want to choose the sample player for the instruments. And if you uncheck this, you could choose multiple sample players. But I'm going to leave this checked for now. And make sure to assign the MIDI channels for each instrument. By default, it's just going to be one and two. You could drag these volume sliders to adjust the instruments at their peak volume. Ideally, for a crossfade, you want the highest volume of each of your instruments to match. There's no one size fits all approach because any combination of sounds is going to interact differently in a crossfade. So it'll just take some dialing in. Okay, so when you move your CC controller for any of the assigned channels, Xfade will send CC7 or CC11 volume information to each of the instruments that'll raise the volume of one and lower the volume of the other. When you use Xfade, you're actually playing multiple MIDI channels simultaneously, but you only need to send your MIDI on one of the active channels that's selected. The way this works is Xfade is going to look for MIDI that comes in on any of the selected channels, and then it's going to propagate it to all of the selected channels. So in this example, we have channels 1 and 2 selected. If you send a signal on either channels 1 or 2, Xfade is going to see it and then pass along MIDI to both of the instruments on channels 1 and 2. You'll notice that the speed of the volume change isn't constant. It actually speeds up as the volume gets lower. And that is because if you take a look at the curve, this is an equal power crossfade. Now, we can control the shape of the curve with the dial on the lower left, and this knob will blend between an equal power crossfade when it's at 100 and a linear crossfade at 0. A linear crossfade can sometimes have a volume dip at the midway point in the crossfade. So you'll want to experiment to find the right balance for your particular instruments. So let's take a look at the fade menu in the bottom right. This allows you to control at what point on your CC controller the fade is going to start and stop. And this menu is for the fade mode. So let's say instead of transitioning between instruments by fading up and down, you want to instead add instruments by fading them up and then just keeping them up. In that case, you could choose accumulation mode, and that'll fade the instruments up and then keep them there. So you could sort of use this to build up sounds instead of just transitioning between sounds. Sometimes you might be transitioning between two sounds and you might want to freeze one in place. Like maybe one of the sounds is just striking your ear in a certain way and you want to just keep it there. Xfade has these pause buttons at the bottom of each instrument, and you could use those to just kind of freeze that instrument at the volume that it's at.